Okay, let's talk about the lights on the front of your switch. So you have multiple lights on the fronts of the switch. Depending on the model that you have, you're going to see a different combination of these lights. But let's go over the major ones, though, the ones that you should be most concerned with. So there's a couple of these lights, these first two lights that are going to be more generally associated with the switch as a whole, whereas a few of these are going to be more associated with the port itself. And then you've got a button on the front that is the mode. And so what I mean by this is these first two lights are indicators of how what the switch is doing, versus these four indicators are indicate what the port it is doing. So what we saw is that the switch had these lights above the ports right here. So we've got port 1, which is right here, and this is the light indicator for port 1. We've got port 2 right here, and this is the light indicator for port 2. And the light indicators are actually arrows. So this one, the port 1 points up because the top port is port 1, and then this indicator, it's a triangle that points down, and that's because port 2 is the one on the bottom. And so we see that this is port 3 and 4, this is port 5 and 6. And so these lights, these little triangles that point up or down, will change depending on what we have selected. So the system just lets us know some basic power and functionality of the switch. The RPS, or redundant power supply, will let us know what is happening with the power. So we can see that this switch is on, so it's lit up right now. And then we see the stat, duplex, and speed listed down here. And so when we hit the mode button right here, it will actually toggle between these different options right here. So these options right here, we press it and it will go down to the next one. We press it again and it will go down to the next one. And we select stat, duplex, speed, PoE. We'll select those different options. On the 3750, so I've got two models here. We see the mode button right here. We see the system and XPS, because the power that's on these are, it's got dual power, and there's it says XPS rather than RPS, but then we've got stat, speed, duplex. It's actually horizontal, and on this one, our ports LEDs are at the bottom there, and the port 1, which would start right here, is this first one, and it actually has a 1 written on that LED, and port 2 down here is right here. And those LEDs are in the shape of RJ45. So the 3750 versus the 2960, we've got a little different light pattern, but the functionality is very similar. So now these four lights that we cycle through. So when we press mode, we'll cycle through these four lights. If we got the first one stat selected, then the light on each of the port indicates the port status. And then that's when, if it's active, then it starts flashing. The duplex lets us know what the duplex setting is on each of the ports. The speed indicates then the speed in which those ports are operating at. And the PoE lets us know what the power over Ethernet capabilities of each of those ports are, or what status those ports are in. So let's take a look a little more in depth into those four statuses and see what different options we have with those, or what they actually indicate. So the LED itself can actually have several different states. It could just be off, or it could be green, or it could be amber, or it could be blinking green or blinking amber. Or it could be alternating between the green and the amber. And each one of those is going to say something different about that port. So if we have stat selected, that means the stat would light up right here. Then what would happen is, if it was off, the LED would be off. If the link was up, then it would be green. If it's active and like things are happening on it, it will flash with the activity. So, you'll see it flashing there. If it's blocked, and we'll talk about blocked ports later on, then it will be amber or amber blinking, or if there's some sort of fault, something's wrong with it, then it will be alternating between the green and the amber. We press the mode button, and when we press the mode button, then it will shift down. So we press this mode button right here, it'll shift down to duplex. And when it's in duplex, then it's going to indicate that it's half duplex if it's off, or full duplex if it's green. Pretty basic. You got two options there. So the rest of this, not applicable. It doesn't have any amber lights or blinking green lights. Okay, we press the mode button again, and then we have now selected the speed. So if it's off, it's at 10 megabits per second. If it's on, it's at 100. So if it's green, it's 100. If it's blinking green, then we're at 1,000 or gigabit, and then nothing for the amber colors. And then we press the mode button once again, then it selects the port speed, and if nothing is happening, just means that there's no PoE device attached to it. If it is the green, that means the PoE is on. If it's flashing, well, it won't flash green. If it's amber, it's disabled, and if it's blinking amber, then it's a fault. And then alternating just means it's denied. And we'll talk more about PoE later on, but just know that you've got these different settings as you press the mode button, and then the port indicators at the top will change the information, or the top of the 2960, it's the bottom of the 3750. Those port indicators will change and flag different things that's happening on that port. All right, so there's the status of the individual ports, but there's also the status of the switch itself and things that are happening on the switch. So let's talk about a couple of those LEDs, such as the RPS. RPS is redundant power supply. Redundant power supply is the extra little connector on the back that you may not have seen before. You've got the regular kind of connector that possibly uses the same type of plug-in as like a computer would use, or a monitor. And then you've got the other little plug that says DC power on it, and that is a redundant power supply. So this LED indicator right here tells us the status of that redundant power supply. If it's off, it's off. If it's green, it's ready. If it's blinking green, it's not available. If it's amber, it's fault tolerant. And if it's blinking amber, it's failed to RPS. So it just gives us the status of RPS at any given time. Then we have the PoE light. The PoE light, we do not see it on the 2960 because it doesn't have PoE capability. We do see it on this 3750. And so it is something that we can select. When we have it selected, when we press the mode and it cycles through the different ones, when we have it selected, it's just green. And so that lets us know that the ports are indicating their PoE status. But when we do not have it selected, it tells us some additional information. When it's not selected and it's off, it just means that there's no issues. But if it is blinking amber, that means that there is some sort of port issue that you probably need to get in and explore what that port issue is. So that is the PoE will give you some additional information when it's not selected.